Folks, I'm almost ashamed to tell people that I was 11 years old before I really, for real, stopped believing in a Santa Claus. And I'm almost ashamed to tell people that. But when I was younger, it never dawned on me to question much, because Grandma, Mama, Daddy, and all my aunts and uncles were telling me I needed to be a good boy, so that come Christmas time, I wouldn't have a problem getting toys. So my faith was placed in being good all year long to get toys on Christmas. But when I found out that Santa never existed, I hope none of our parents are teaching our children here who are present this morning. Because when I found out that Santa never existed, I was heartbroken, confused, and vengeful. Tell you about my veins. So yet even, I just happened to be hanging some clothes up in the closet one day upstairs in our room, my brother and I. And I went into the closet, and as I was hanging things up, I noticed a box up under a coat. In that box was a new telescope. So, folks, I stayed home from school one day, played sick, told Mama I had diarrhea. She said, well, in that case, you can't go to school. So I could stay home and play with my new telescope. Even before Christmas came. And by the time Christmas came around, I was tired of playing with the telescope. So my brothers and sisters, I said that to say this. The fictitious belief in a Santa Claus is comparable to the fictitious belief in an individual receiving a dose of sperm from a spirit, thereby giving birth to a human individual, that those who deceitfully wrote the allegories of battle is now being called God's Son. But we don't even have to think on that level, for we the educated ones know the story of Asar, Set, and Harun. That story which tells us of the theft of our ancient ancestors, and white supremacy was as strong then as it is now. And the need for our oppressor to establish dominance through violence has always prevailed. Ah, shame. The nightmare which is before the Christ masses. Now, my brothers and sisters, in about 24 hours, we will be going through, and much of it is going to be unnoticed, which is called the winter solstice. And this is where the S-U-N of God, the sun, goes no further on the earth for a total of 72 hours, or 3 days. Does that story sound familiar? And after 3 days, the Son of God, S-U-N, rises 1 degree north. And it is said that the Son of God. And the cycle starts all over again every year. And since this ascent of the Son of God began in the darkest hour when the sun was at its lowest ebb, it is said to have been born in a cave. Sound familiar? And in the meantime, the constellation of Virgo was positioned due east on the horizon as the Son of God was, as they have written, born of a virgin in a manger or a cave on December 25th. At the same time, in the western sky stood the constellation of Taurus, close to this astrological sign by another cluster called Arego or Arega. And this Arega was called, you got it, the manger or the stable. And while this is phenomenal astrology, it doesn't stop here. For while the star Sirius stood pointing to the celestial constellation of Orion's belt, these three stars were called the Three Kings. Y'all remember that song, We Three Kings of Orient are? Yeah, shit. Oh yeah, these astronomical myths tied in with our African story of a mother, a father, and a son, entwined together with our story of our African Trinity, has been incorporated by those who knew no God. And it's obvious in the barbarianism of those who would dominate others, but it goes on even more. And by the time the Son of God passes over the celestial equator, forming a cross in the process, the Son of God was said to have been crucified and later on crucified. And since this S-U-N of God remained in its dormant position for how many days? 3 days. It was said that the Son of God died and was dead for 3 days. The rising of the Son of God remained in its dormant position for that long. And when it rose, the sun, I'm saying, this was nothing more than our original story of Peru Horus, the son of Asar and the Set. In the two-bedroom nectar, and in the Greek it was Osiris and Isis. Now in the New Testament there are many hidden references. I prefer to call them deception, because they are nothing more than deceptions, for we have been snowed into believing in the creation of our oppressors' vile right. But there is a story. And while there is a story, this story is mythological, philosophically speaking, and it involves the drama of Osiris, or Asa, the king of Egypt. And he had a brother whose name was Seth. I told y'all earlier about this thing of the devil, right? Well, this story is as much biblical as it is philosophical. It told of an evil brother named Seth. Sound familiar? Who murdered his brother Osiris. He cut him up into how many pieces? How many? 14! Come on, y'all. Cut him up into 14 pieces and threw him in the Nile River. While the pieces were said to have been cast in that river, and everything recovered but one part. And that was the Washington Memorial. Oh, y'all over here. Come on, y'all. I tried to be passive when we have children. See, folks, I know some of us know. But is there anyone present that does not know what the Washington Memorial represents? If it is, would you please raise your hand? Please? All right, the Washington Memorial. Well, brother said, just tell him. Well, to be safe, I was going to do that anyway. But I'll say it anyway because it represents the giver of what they call life. The phallus. I say, and folks on church steeples, you will see the phallus with a cross at the end with a circle on top of it. And this represents the Son of God on a cross. Don't believe it? Check your churches on your way home. I know some of y'all gonna be looking you right, but I'll tell you this, put one eye on the church and one eye on the road. Because you're gonna be looking, because I will. And while Osiris was in his funerary state, his queen Isis became a winged creation and flew above her husband, and she flew above her king, and she began to flap her wings above his thighs, and his thighs began to vibrate, and in that vibration, while the phallus was gone, there was a rocking and a rolling. Trying to keep it pure, y'all, but I got church children sitting here, but they began to rock and roll, and all of a sudden, there was an explosion. And Isis ended up getting impregnated. Now you know what the explosion was. Isis, whom would give birth to he who was the Son of God, who would do his father's bidding, was Horus. And this, my friends, is the story of why we do what we do. That little scenario was called the doctrine of immaculate conception. Ashe. And so, my friends, when one faces the truth, the question is, do I keep lying to myself? Do I keep lying to the people? Do I keep lying to my children? Folks, when I first became aware of what was going on down here, I was ashamed to tell anybody because all of my friends were Baptist preachers. But once the thrill is within you, you got to tell somebody else when you know that what they're feeding our people is not real. You got to tell somebody else because the spirit within you is not going to allow you to keep it to yourself. You got to tell somebody else because when you move from being called to being chosen, you got to tell it. And I ask, do you know the power that you have when the dreaming is all over? I didn't know then, but I know now. Well, the nightmare cease. I always wonder, will it ever cease? Now that I'm beginning to awaken. And what about hell? What about heaven? I know when my eldest brother, before he transitioned, he was in confusion, and we were speaking together concerning my newfound awakening. And he kind of shocked me, but we were in conversation together, and he looked at me and he said, well, Ray. I said, yeah, man. He said, what's going to keep the other God from getting mad at this God if I was serving this God and serve this God? And I looked at him in disgust. Said, what does it matter if you don't live the truth, achieving liberation and freedom within, brother? I ain't trying to come this way again. And the truth be told, once you elevate to the seventh chakra, a topic for another message, you have, as we say, a real, for real hope that you again, once again, will become the God that you were before you left Utopia, knowing that the same God who brought your ancestors through the storms and through the trials and through the tribulations ain't about to stop loving us now. But wait just a minute, y'all, because I know this is the same God who allowed us to give civilization to the world. He's the same God. It's the same God who instilled within us the rhythm and the arts of the world. It's the same God, y'all. It's that same God who has allowed us to put vibrations together to make that thing called music. It's the same God. And I'm sure she's not going to leave me now. It's the same God who allowed us to take the protons and the neutrons and the unforeseeable and unseen molecules to create that thing called science. The same God who instilled us with the ability to create great geometric patterns that would cover great grounds upon this very planet is the same God. Folks can't figure out how they did it, but folks, when God is with you, he's more than the world is against you. That's the same God, folks, that allowed our people to come to the understanding of the body and the necessary needs for healing all ourselves, whose people would someday carve into stone the literary works of the world, and others would come along and read them. It's the same God who gave us the knowledge and the wisdom to receive the right knowledge that we expound on our path. Same God, folks, who gave us the awareness and the consciousness of them that we might live our lives in And again, that's truth, justice, harmony, balance, and reciprocity. I'll shake the nightmare of the Christ mess.